From cave art to 3D images, people have always made visuals to communicate with one another. Drawing pictures was, and still remains, our first form of writing. One of the earliest developmental stages of writing is pictorial, in which children use pictures instead of letters to communicate. As early as the pictorial stage, children understand the relationship between the picture and the message the picture represents. Vygotsky states that any visual representation is an abstraction of a real experience. For instance, a picture of a house is not a house itself, but rather marks on a surface that we have agreed will represent the concrete object that is a house. Cooper, 2008, page 15. In fact, visuals are everywhere around us. Unless we are far out in the country, it is difficult to look in any direction without our eyes landing upon some type of visual representation. Signs, billboards, pictures, magazines, etc. have all become so ingrained in our consciousness that we don't even really consider that these visuals are actually abstractions. We don't remember that at one time we ourselves had to learn the meaning represented by these abstractions. One example of Vygotsky's agreed-upon representations that immediately came to my mind upon reading this article was that of McDonald's Golden Arches. Very quickly, young children come to understand the meaning of the environmental print around them, such as the giant M that stands for McDonald's, or the icon that represents Toys R Us. These are agreed-upon representations. However, what if a child doesn't have the schema to understand a visual representation? Then confusion results instead of understanding. For example, about 5 years ago, I was helping to administer the Stanford 10 assessment to a group of kindergarten children. This test relies heavily on simple line drawings that children should be able to connect with everyday objects. One of the drawings was of a phone. However, the drawing had not been updated. Instead of looking like the phones that the children were familiar with today, the drawing represented phones as they had looked 30 years ago. To me, it was a normal picture. I didn't consider that there was a break in understanding concerning the agreed-upon representation until students started to ask me about the picture. They didn't understand the picture or what it represented because the image was not familiar to them. As teachers, I believe it's important to remember the statement that children are natural visual learners, but they need instruction regarding the interpretation of culturally constructed visual messages. Cooper, 2008, page 5. We can't assume our students know how to interpret visuals. We have to explicitly teach them how to read pictures, drawings, charts, etc. We can't expect them to understand the information represented by a timeline or a graph, for example, if we have not provided them with the knowledge to do so. Teachers and librarians must provide students with a wide variety of visual representations so that understanding visuals becomes internalized. This is one important way in which librarians can partner with the classroom teacher. With all the pictures, maps, and other resources that librarians have at their fingertips, as well as access to the internet, we can easily enhance student learning by assisting teachers in the planning of lessons and providing students with an abundant variety of rich visual resources that range from the literal to the abstract.